Davis and William grew up in a small town in a modest household. Their father worked as a government clerk, and their mother sewed clothes at home to make ends meet. From a very young age, the two brothers showed completely different personalities. William, the elder brother, was careful, disciplined. He watched every teka that came and went. At the age of 10, while other children spent their pocket money on sweets, William kept a small notebook. He wrote every coin in, every coin out. He slept soundly knowing exactly what he had. Davis, the younger brother, was different. He was curious, energetic, always asking why and what if. He once spent his whole week's pocket money on seeds, planted them in the backyard, and sold the vegetables to neighbors 3 months later, for 5 times what he had spent. Their father smiled at both of them. But quietly he worried more about Davis. "That boy throws his money to the wind," he would say. But their mother, she would only smile. Years passed. Both brothers finished school and entered the working world. William got a steady job at a local bank. It paid well. Every month, on the first day of the month, he transferred exactly 3% of his salary into a savings account. He never touched it. Never. He was proud of this discipline. By the time he was 20, William had saved a respectable amount, enough to buy a modest house, which he did. He married a careful woman named Emily, who shared his values. They lived simply. No risks, no surprises, no losses. Davis, meanwhile, struggled at first. He worked at a small trading company, earning less than his brother. But instead of saving every penny in a box, he was always reading business books, biographies of successful people, market reports. His evenings were spent in the local library or talking to shopkeepers about how they ran their businesses. At Otosh, Davis took a risk that made William shake his head in disbelief. He took a small loan and invested it into a mobile phone accessory shop. When smartphones were just beginning to become popular in their town, William called him foolish. "You're borrowing money to spend money. Are you mad?" Davis smiled and said something his brother would never forget. "Bay, you are saving water in a jar. I am digging a well." In the first year, Davis barely broke even. He worked 12-hour days. His wife, Fatima, stood beside him, sometimes even helping at the counter. In the second year he started making a small profit. In the third year, he opened a second shop. By his mid-30s, Davis had 3 shops. He reinvested almost everything back into the business. He hired young people from his town. He learned about suppliers, negotiation, and customer trust. When smartphones gave way to smart accessories, power banks, and wireless earbuds, Davis was already there, stocking them. William, meanwhile, had received 2 promotions at the bank. His savings account had grown. He was stable. But something quietly nagged at him every time he looked at his balance. It wasn't growing fast enough. Inflation was eating away at the real value of his savings. The house he bought had not increased much in value. His children were growing up, and school fees were rising. He opened his notebook one evening and did the calculations. For the first time in his life, the numbers frightened him. Both brothers now had families. William had 2 children, a son and a doctor. He gave them everything they needed, but little more. "We save" was the motto of the house. The children grew up cautious, uncertain, afraid of making mistakes with money. Davis had 2 children as well, a son and a doctor. They grew up watching their father move. They saw him fail and try again. They saw him shake hands with strangers and turn them into partners. They saw their mother manage the accounts and make smart decisions. Davis' son, Danny, at the age of 7, asked his father to teach him about business. Davis sat him down and said, "Son, money is not something you protect behind walls. It is a seed. The more carefully you plant it, the more it grows. The longer you leave it buried in the dark, the more it rots." When both brothers reached their 50s, life looked very different for each of them. Davis had his savings, his house, his pension, his security. But his children had no financial education. His son worked a 9-to-5 job and struggled to save, just like his father had taught him. His daughter married early and became dependent on her husband. Neither of them had ever learned to build anything. William had built a small empire. Not a massive corporation, but 4 thriving shops, a small warehouse, and a stake in a young e-commerce startup his son Danny had convinced him to invest in. When Danny's startup got acquired 3 years later, William sat in his modest living room and cried. Not from sadness, but because he finally understood that all those small risks, all those sleepless nights, all those moments of doubt, they had compounded, like interest, into something real. Davis visited his brother that evening. He sat quietly for a long time. Then he said, "I saved my whole life. You risked yours. And somehow, you won." William looked at his brother with gentle eyes and said, "You didn't lose by. You just played a different game. But it was never the game that builds a future." Saving money is a virtue. But saving alone, without investing, without learning, without risking wisely, is like filling a bucket with a hole in it. William didn't gamble. He educated himself. He started small. He reinvested. He surrounded himself with people who believed in growth. The difference between Davis and William was not talent. It was not luck. It was mindset. One brother asked, "How do I protect what I have?" The other asked, "How do I grow what I have?" Which brother are you? If this story made you think, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to the story of becoming rich, because every great life starts with a single decision.